to the seventh webinar. This one is going to be quick because I'm just recording um, on my own, kind of asynchronously for you all. But I wanted to make sure that you got this content and got this information because it's really important as you're going through this process of developing a project, developing a field research design, field research methods. And as you're collecting data, it's really important to think about how you're going to analyze that data, what story you're going to tell, right, from the data. Because the hallmarks of great proposals in years past is that they're able to tell a story. They're able to bring the reviewer, bring the audience into their world and convince them with their narrative and with their story why this quality of life issue deserves the most attention, right? I say it all the time, students, you are the experts, and me reading your proposal, I'm just I'm just your average person. So it's your job to convince me that your quality of life issue is the most important and is deserving of these scholarships, of these awards and recognitions, right? You are the experts. So let that guide you as you're writing and drafting your projects, your proposals. And I hope you take some good information out of this. As always, my name is Josiah Williams. I'm the Senior Program Manager for Quality of Life Innovations. And part of my role, students, is to support you as you're going through this process and creating and developing your quality of life projects and proposals. So if you have any questions whatsoever, you can always send me an email. You can have your teachers, your quality of life teachers, reach out to me. And definitely be attending these webinars as well if you have specific questions, because I am here to, again, support you in this process. All right, let's get into it. So today, where are we kind of? And I start the webinars this way just to center us on specifically which part of the project we're at. So in your QLI process, you may have already identified a topic, conducted background research, and started to design a field research study, right? And this particular webinar is focused on the next two steps, conducting the field research, collecting data, and analyzing your research data. Last week I talked about, or 2 weeks ago, I talked about different field research designs, and you can check that out on the Student Resources Hub. It's the sixth webinar on just field research methods and designs. But today we're going to focus more specifically on the data analysis section of it. And let's get into it. So today we're going to talk about quantifying data, data analysis statistics, and reviewing the rubric. But I want to start with a quick review. And I've been using this in the webinars more frequently, but I think it really gives context to the proposal as a whole, right? So in the process and in your proposal, it's going to look like this when you put it all together, when you smash it together like a sandwich or a smash burger. And we are focused in this third section here, research and analysis, right? So you'll have a title page, table of contents, summary, which is about half a page that goes over just generally high level your entire project. Then you have your background research section. This is at least 3 pages. And then you have your research and analysis section. This is again at least 3 pages. And then recommendation, implementation, and so on. And in 2 weeks, I'm doing another webinar on the specific recommendation section. So make sure you log on to that one, or if you miss it or can't make it, again, the recording will be posted on your Student Resources Hub page. All right, so field research and analysis, just some specifics about this section. It has to be 3 pages minimum. And in terms of the citations, so for your overall project, you're required to have 8 citations. 7 of them have to be secondary. These are scholarly articles. And one of them has to be a primary source. And this can be cited in your background research section, or it can be cited in your primary research section or found in your primary research section. What does that mean? That means for some projects, they're conducting surveys or interviews, and these both count as primary sources, right? Because you, the student, you, the researcher, are collecting data. You're collecting primary data, right? And so that would count as your primary source. So make sure that if this is if this is what you're doing, if you're doing surveys, if you're doing experimentation, make sure that in your bibliography or your references or works cited page that you include primary citation, colon, surveys or primary source experimentation. And there is specific instructions in the student manual. Again, this is found in your Student Resources Hub for how to cite your surveys, your interviews, and your experiments. Okay. Um, so uh, uh, don't stress too much about, well, how do I cite it? What if it doesn't get counted? Make sure you're reviewing your student manual, and all of the guidance is there. It's at the very end of the student manual, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but this primary source could be cited in the background research, or it could be your primary field research, right? And there are 5 requirements for this section. 5 questions that you have to answer essentially. Number one, what is the purpose of your field research? This has to be connected to your background research. There has to be flow. Number two, what field research methods? Oh, two, your field research methods or process. So, what is your methodology? What process did you take? Students will say, I did step 1, step 2, step 3, to step 4. Um, or you could do it in other formats as well. Number 3, what or who did you study? So being very clear of your population, right? Did you study microparticles in New York City water? Did you study high school students who are 11th and 12th grade? Be very precise with who or what you studied, because again, think about if there's another research team at a different high school that wants to copy your work or to replicate your work, not copy. They should be able to do so based on your writing. Number 4, you have to include what your results are, and then number 5, what are your conclusions? What conclusions have you drawn? And I want to bring up this proposal from last year. It's entitled Ready, Set, Safe. And this team won second place in the competition. They did an excellent job looking at emergency preparedness in elementary school students. And they actually partnered with a number of elementary schools in their neighborhood or in their borough, and were able to teach these elementary school students about emergency preparedness. And let's look, so this is their field research section. And I have the requirements again because I want to show you, number one, the purpose of your field research. This team did an excellent job answering all of these questions and just explaining their methodology. So they say our quality of life project prepared fourth and fifth graders in 5 different schools in New York City for emergencies. Our research showed that there are currently few programs geared to teaching children how to handle um, accidents when no adult is present. So there in the second sentence, they answer what is the purpose? Our research showed that there are currently few programs geared towards teaching children how to handle accidents when no adult is present. They connect their field research back to their background research. So based on the research they've done, there are not enough programs. That is why they're doing this field research, right? That's why they're doing this experimentation, and that's why they're working with these students. Number 2, your field research methods and process. So we go down here, they say, we measured the success of our solution using pre-test and post-test. The target population for us, well, let me just stop there. They tell us exactly what they did. We measured the success of our solution using pre-tests and post-tests. So that is part of their methodology. They also, I want to point your attention up here to the third sentence. We consulted several emergency response professionals and teachers in order to build a lesson. So, in addition to doing a pre-test and post-test, they interviewed or consulted several professionals, experts, to create a lesson plan. So, they're doing experimentation, they're doing interviews, they're doing surveys. So, this is a mixed methods research design. And we'll talk about what specifically that means in a minute, but these are very strong proposals. Anyway, number 3, who and what did you study? Our quality of life project prepared fourth and fifth graders in different schools. Five different schools. And then later they say the target population for our study is fourth and fifth graders in New York City. Very clear, point blank, period. What results, or yeah, what results? Sorry, this arrow is off. Oh, but it's not interesting. Okay. Anyway, excuse me. So what results do they have? They say our field research demonstrated that fourth and fifth graders are not adequately prepared to react in an emergency. As simple as that. So in this first paragraph, these this team answered every single question or almost every question, all but the conclusions. And I think this is very robust. This is a great way to open this section because they give you a taste of everything they've done, the purpose, why they're doing this, the methodology, what's going to happen, who and what they studied, and a taste of their results, right? Now I want to read more to learn more about what they did and specifically the data, right? So continuing on in their section, I wanted to highlight this part as well. So this is when they go specifically into the pre-test and the post-test results and analysis a little bit deeper. So again, the field research methods and process, they have it very clear. The pretest consisted of 20 multiple choice questions with two demographic questions and 18 knowledge-based questions administered to gauge existing emergency knowledge. It's very direct, very clear. I know exactly what I'm reading and what they did. Um, Further, their conclusions. So in reading, the post-test consisted of the same questions as the pre-test, with two additional questions asking if students enjoyed the lesson and if they believed it helped them. Appendix F. Um, Over 93% of students enjoyed the lesson, and 92.6% of students believed they were more prepared to respond to an emergency after our lesson. Appendix G. This is These are their results. These are their results. This is wonderful. Again, I'm sorry this arrow is not it's not actually pointing from results. I don't know why it's so messed up. Sorry, it's driving me insane. Crazy. Anyway, they clearly highlight the results of this post-test. Um, and the students enjoyed it. So these are really good results. Lastly, the conclusions. So later on, they say after our lesson, more students were able to correctly identify medical emergencies than before. Yeah, this is this is a way to conclude. So I'm just going to read. In our post-test, there was a 43.17% increase in students having heard of the Heimlich maneuver, a 15.6% increase in recognizing the signs of choking, and a 19.7% increase in recognizing an asthma attack, and a 13.9% increase in understanding what to do where when you hear the smoke alarm or where you hear the smoke alarm. So all of these increases from pre-test to post-test may indicate there is some learning, and they directly say that after our lesson, more students were able to identify medical emergencies before. So they're concluding that based on this data, based on the increase in ability to recognize and respond, students are learning how to identify medical emergencies, right? So they have their results and their conclusions right there. Okay, so I want to look before we go into the data analysis for today. I want to look at the rubric and highlight some pieces of it for you. So this is for the research and analysis section. It's 25 points total. So there are five different areas that are assessed by the reviewers. First, it's the purpose of field research, making sure it's linked to or follows from the background presented. So in the previous example of Ready, Set, Safe, they said at the outset, they said our research showed there was a lack of programming preparing elementary school students. And they showed that their the purpose of their field research is linked to or flows from the background presented, right? So there has to be that connection piece. Secondly, it'll be the description of research method is clear. So you describe the type of research conducted. In the past example, they said we did a pre-test, post-test. We also consulted with and surveyed, etc. Make sure that you're clear about participants involved and the process used to collect data. Number three, research method is appropriate. So it has to be effective and appropriate. For the past example, Ready, Set, Safe, they were studying. So their purpose was to understand, or yeah, to understand and assess how students were learning based on their implementation, which is the curriculum. So they did a pre-test and a post-test to learn if there was any growth in the students' understanding. This is a great way to assess learning and how there's development based on a particular implementation. If they just surveyed students after and didn't survey them before, then how would they be able to conclude that students actually learned and didn't know this the whole time? You couldn't make that conclusion effectively. Next, analysis of results is clear. Findings are clearly summarized and interpreted. Charts and visuals are clearly labeled. So if you include charts and visuals in your proposal, make sure that they're clear. Make sure that you have titles on all your charts. You have axis titles as well. Um, just so the reader is able to um, is not having to use a magnifying glass or is not getting distracted. And then lastly, innovation. Is there an inventive research design, a unique approach to research, and or a creative presentation? What this past team did really well and what they did that I think pointed towards innovation is they connected with um, professionals, experts working in emergency preparedness to develop their curriculum, and they designed a pre-test, post-test, and they also surveyed the teachers as well. We didn't look at it, but they surveyed the teachers to assess the needs. Um, they did a pre-test, post-test, and they also interviewed experts. So this mixed methods approach to this quality of life issue really was innovative and check this box off for me. They approached this problem from multiple angles. They developed a implementation from multiple angles, and they did an incredible job at collecting results. All right, now we're going to get into data analysis, so quantifying data. Um, and I'm going to skip over this because I did go over what is field research in the previous webinar. If you missed it, you're welcome to go back again. It's in the Student Resources Hub on the WISE website. Okay, so now let's get into data analysis and statistics, my favorite thing. I'm going to take a sip of coffee. All right, so trends and correlations. What is a trend? What is a correlation? A trend is essentially looking at the data. What is it doing? Does the data increase? Does it decrease? Does it flatline? Um, for survey research, what did the majority of survey respondents think? What is the trend in their responses? Do most people think that do most people agree that the movie Hamnet should have gotten 4 out of 5 stars? Or do most people believe it should have gotten 2 out of 5 stars? Right? So what is the trend in how people are responding? Side note, Hamnet is a devastatingly beautiful movie. Be prepared to cry if you watch it. And then during observational research, this is the third bullet point. When observing a math class, are more students asleep compared to an English class than not asleep? What is the trend in students falling asleep during classes? If you look at math, science, English, art, history. So what are the majority doing and thinking? Now, correlations, this is a statistical measurement, numerical measurement, a quantified data. So while I think of it, trends are more qualitative. You're looking at general shape of data, while correlations are more quantitative, where you're looking at the some different measurements, right? So correlation, it's a statistical measurement to measure the extent at which two variables are related. You may have heard the term positively correlated, negatively correlated, or no correlation. Um, these are terms that come from uh, calculating the correlational coefficient. This is an R term. If it's one, then you have a positive correlation going up and to the right. If it's -1, then you have a negative correlation going down and to the right. Um, and then if it's zero, there's no correlation whatsoever. Um, so the data is all over the place or it's a flat line. You can calculate this on Excel or you can find a calculator on Google. So here we go. So this is just to give you a representation of what does this mean specifically. And before I touch on that, the R term, the correlational coefficient, if it's 1, then you have a straight line. If it's maybe zero point 0.7, it's close to 1, so it's positive correlation, but maybe it's not fully straight. Maybe there's some bends to it, but it's still generally going up this direction. Okay, so now let's look at the picture here. So degrees of correlation, no correlation is this red right here. The data is all scattered. Then you have low correlation. It's still scattered, but it's generally moving in this direction. So this R value may be like zero point 0.5. Okay. Then you have high correlation. So it's closer together and it's still going in this general direction. This may be a zero point 0.7. And then you have a perfect correlation, which is 1, where every data point is on this line, right? A trend line. So if I draw a trend line for this green data, not every data point will be on that line. Okay. And then we have some more types of correlations. Positive correlation, like I said, is going up and to the right. Negative correlation is going down and to the right. You have a curved correlation, so the data increases to an extent and then it goes back down. Um, and then you have partial correlation. So it's positive until a certain point, and then we have no correlation, right? So if you're collecting data and putting it in this chart format, looking at it and doing the analysis of this correlation of this trend will be really helpful for you in arguing that your data is valid, that it's accurate, and um, that it has importance. So we can scatter plot. If you're including a scatter plot in your proposal, make sure that you have a title for the scatter plot. This is energy consumption versus age. Make sure you also have data um, axis titles. So this axis is energy consumption in kilojoules per day, and this one is age in years. So we're comparing the energy consumption and age, right? And they've done this data analysis. They have trends. We have two positive correlations here. And then you have one bar that is no correlation. Okay, so some other data analysis methods. Note, real quick footnote. If you have this chart, make sure if you have charts, if you have data, that it's all explained very well, because you don't want to leave a reader to interpret the data for themselves, right? A judge may not be a researcher. They may not be a statistician. They may not know about energy consumption. So they wouldn't be able to understand maybe what this chart is saying. I can infer that we see some positive correlation between the energy consumption and age from 6 to 20. I may want to know, does it keep going up as you age or does it go down at a certain age? I would assume it goes down at a certain age, but that is for you, the student, the writer, the researcher, to explain. All right, so some other statistical analysis, data analysis methods, percentage. This from the example of Ready, Set, Safe, they had a lot of percentages in their data. So what does a percentage show? How many out of 100? So if I have 20% of people who enjoy the movie Hamnet, I have 20 people out of 100 who I surveyed who enjoy Hamnet, or 20% of all my respondents enjoy Hamnet. Next, we'll get into mean, mode, median, and range of a data set. These are really interesting and really important also in showing different pictures of your data. So first, the mean or the average. What does it show? This is the typical number in a data set. So it takes account of everything and gives you the average of the data. So the average homework time per student is 2 hours per night. This number is found by taking all of the homework times. So student A has homework time of 4, student B has homework time of 0, student C has homework time of 2. 4 plus 0 plus 2 equals 6 divided by how many students? 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So that is how we calculate the mean. Um, and it gives you a pretty good look at generally all the data. Next, we have the median. The median. So this is a little bit different. This is the middle number in a data set. So the median screen time for students is 4 hours per day. Homework time for, sorry. Screen time for students is 4 hours per day. Okay. So the median gives you the middle number, while the mean gives you just the average of everything. So what does this mean? It means half of the students use screens more than 4 hours, and half of the students use screens less than 4 hours a day. So four is the middle. Now, in contrast with the mean, the average will be skewed by outliers. So if you have students who are on screen time for like 20 hours a day, and the rest of the students are around 8, then your average will be pulled up here to maybe like 10 or 12, while the median is less affected by outliers. Okay. So this is something to just keep a note of in your data analysis. If you have outliers in your data, it may be important to make a note of that and to show the median in contrast with the mean. Next, we have the mode. The mode is the most common number in a data set. So for example, on a test, the mode response was 65%. So this means that most students scored a 65. So a deeper analysis should take place to assess if the students are missing the same questions. Um, are the students all cheating off the same person who doesn't typically do well? These are questions to ask, and this is where you in your writing can say, here's the mode, and here's what future studies should look at, or here's what my next analysis did. And lastly, we have the range. The range shows the difference between the highest and the lowest values in a data set. So maybe the highest score on the test was 100 and the lowest was 14, so the range is 86%. What does that mean? The range of the test scores was large, which shows there's a discrepancy in student learning. Both of these students are sitting in the same class, so we should then look at, are there different learning styles? Are there different accommodations needed? Are the students um, both able to pay attention in class, or are there different distractions? What's going on? Why is it so large, the range, right? So all of these can help you paint a picture of the situation, right? And specifically related to the mean, median, and mode, I mentioned this, but outliers will affect the mean or the average. If there are a lot of high value numbers in a data set, the mean will increase, but the median will likely remain uh, unchanged or less significantly changed, right? So here, back to this example, this data set here gives a really good look at how these work together. So the mean, the average, we add them up all together and divide by the number of digits. So we add them all up, you get 35, and divide by 7, you get a mean of 5. Okay. My median is the exact middle number. That is the 6 right here. There are three numbers on this side of it and three numbers on this side of it. The mode is the most common number, and that is 6. There are two sixes. And the range, the smallest and largest, 8 and 1. The difference is 7. And this is goals scored over the last 7 games. So there's a large range in the goals scored over the games. So maybe we should look at maybe this was an away game, people were out, they were sleeping, and this was a home game, right? So this can give context. We need to give context to explain these data. And your job as the author, as the researcher, is to give us context so we better understand your research. Lastly, there are a couple more data analysis tools that I want to mention. Tests of significance. So statistical significance, these are p-values. And if you're doing experimentation, if you're doing pre-test, post-test, you could do a test of statistical significance. It's definitely not required for every proposal, for every type of research. Most proposals don't get into this type of data analysis, but it is an option for you, and it can give the reader more credence or more ethos to your argument. So the p-values, if the p-value is equal to zero point zero 0.05, it is statistically significant that there was a change. This test is saying, is there a difference between these two scores? So in a pretest and a post-test, a test of significance will say, yes, there is a significant difference. And therefore, I can conclude more powerfully that the students did learn from here to there. If it is less than 0.05, it is also statistically significant. But if it is greater than 0.05, it is not statistically significant. So if your p-value is zero point 0.1, then you can't say there is a significant difference between the two scores, right, before and after. And again, this is just showing you in a different way what this means. So the tests of statistical significance, the p-values are using this probability curve. So the most likely responses are in this middle area and then a few standard deviations away. The p-value is this likelihood up here. Okay, so I want to just go back to the rubric and provide some advice. That was a lot. Just gonna we looked at a lot of different data analysis methods. I hope you were taking notes. If you weren't, you can go back. Um, but now I'm going to move on. I'm going to close out with just giving some different ideas for how to implement research findings into your paper, specifically when you're drafting and writing this section. One way to do that is direct quotes from experts. So if you're doing interviews, you're doing surveys, focus groups, adding direct quotes can be very helpful and can help color your proposal. Paraphrasing, again, if you have qualitative data, interviews with an expert, you can paraphrase their responses. Data presentation via charts and graphs. So if you create charts, you create graphs in Excel, you can just directly paste them into your writing. Identify patterns and trends in the data. We talked about patterns, we talked about trends. So directly stating this is a positive correlation uh, between these two variables, etc. Comparisons and contrasts, this is an excellent way to present your data. You can say, you can compare the pretest and the post-test responses, such as in the example of Ready, Set, Safe, and they show that there was an increase from the pretest to the post-test. This is a great way to show that there is um, something happening in your research. And that was just 5. That was not 6. Anyway, again, back to the to the rubric. Always think about innovation. What are some ways that you can build on maybe a research methodology that's been done, or create your own methodology. Again, mixed methods studies are really, really interesting and a great way to look at a whole picture of the data and of the quality of life issue, right? So always think about how can we innovate, how can we build, how can we approach this problem differently. And that is all that I have for you today. I hope you took something out of this. Um, and if you have questions, again, you can always reach out to me specifically, or you can have your QLI teacher reach out. My job is, again, to support you and support your projects, and I cannot wait to see them and read them and review them on April 17th at 5 p.m., which is the due date for this competition. Thank you so much and have a lovely rest of your day.